Welcome and thank you for joining us this morning. First of all, I'm very sorry that we got a little bit of a delay because of the technology. Thank you for joining for the first day of the Inclusion and Access to the Sport virtual conference hosted by Anti-Racism in Sport campaign. Please note we will be recording this session. Today conference is being recorded and will be shared on our website and social media after today's event. Closed captioning and ASL interpretations are available for presentation. The ASL interpreter will be pinned to your screen, and to turn on closed captioning, you can select it at the bottom of your screen. For those who don't know me, I am Ruben Garang, the Director of Immigration Partnership, Winnipeg. We would like to acknowledge the land that we are on. First, we want to acknowledge that the land on which this event is taking place and where we are situated as organizers of this campaign is the traditional territory of Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe Cree, Dakota, the Nez people, and the homeland of the Métis Nation, and that our water is sources from Short Lake 40 First Nation. As we present on topics of inclusions and access to sport and implement our anti-racism in sport campaign, we are committed to taking time to understand and reflect and educate ourselves on the ongoing harms of colonization and its impact on access and inclusion in sport, while ensuring we listen and amplify the voices of the First Nation, Métis Nation, and Inuit athletes through this work. Knowing what has just happened in the news for the last few days in our province, that a family of 4 bodies were found at the border. This is a tragic, and I would like to invite all of us to take a moment of silence. Thank you so much. For today's event, we will begin by hearing from Narota Rose, the Treaty Relations Commissioner from the Treaty Relations Commission of Manitoba. Daria, one of the anti-racism in sport campaign project consultants to open the conference. We will be having 3 presentations this morning that focus on the 3 very important topics. The first one is creating welcoming and cultural safe places for sport, recreation, and physical activities for newcomers. The second one on 2SLGBTQ+ inclusion in sport. And the last one is about offering sport and recreation opportunities to people with disability. Allow me to welcome Loretta, the Treaty Relation Commissioner from the Treaty Relation Commission of Manitoba. Narota Rose is a member of the Holowa Water First Nations in Manitoba. Larota obtained her law degree from Quebec University and has been a practicing lawyer for over 20 years, providing legal counsel to numerous First Nation people, governments, organizations, including the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs and Assembly of First Nations. Rhoda Rose is the Treaty Relation Commission and we are Commissioner, and we are honored to have her with us today. Welcome, Loretta.
Good morning. Good morning. And thank you, Ruben, for the introduction. I hope everyone is doing well and keeping safe and keeping warm. I think it's a little chilly out there. I let the dogs out and it was a little chilly for me in any event. But I want to thank you for the opportunity to bring some greetings, some short greetings as we begin the conversation of a really important issue. And but I do want to start off by recognizing as well that we live, work, and play on ancestral Indigenous lands across Manitoba. We express gratitude to Mother Earth for the resources that we are using. We acknowledge our responsibilities and give thanks for the benefits derived from being a treaty partner. This conference and the issue of racism in sport is one I think that has been put on the back burner or has not even put on the front burner in many instances. And while there are many, many issues out there, you know, we can't forget about the importance of racism in sport. And oftentimes when we think about sports, we think it's fun. You know, it's a break from our everyday life where many of us feel or experience and witness racism. And so sport provides us an opportunity to take a break from life in many instances and to be able to enjoy ourselves, burn off some of that physical energy and, you know, whatever it is that kind of plagues us during the day. Sport is to offer us a reprieve from that. And it also is one of those areas that can unite people and bring people from all backgrounds together. Competition is good and it should drive us to excel. But we need to ensure that everybody has that opportunity, right? And I think many of us have heard as engaging in sports or at sporting events, we've heard racist remarks directed either at ourselves or at others. And perhaps we've even gotten into arguments, both as an athlete and as a parent. And I know I certainly have. I too have played sports, maybe not so anymore, but certainly in my younger days. And I really don't recall a time when I felt that I belonged in or at the tournament. And well, you know, maybe that's not entirely true. As Ruben had mentioned in my biography, I'm from Hollowater First Nation, which is a reserve just on the northeast side of Lake Winnipeg. And because it was on the reserve, most of us that attended were Indigenous. We're First Nation, in fact, but we also had First Nation, Métis, and we did have a few non-First Nation people, mostly Caucasian. And so we were all the same, right? And we played sports in the community, and racism didn't even enter the play. But when we did go to tournaments, I played volleyball, I played floor hockey, I played, you know, a number of different, even track events, and we would compete against neighboring communities or neighboring towns. And when we did that, even as a young person, you start to feel the difference from playing at home, where, you know, we're kind of all from the same background, to when we actually went to a different community. And oftentimes it would start with the wide-eyed stares, like, who are these people coming here? It would involve whispers. And then when the play started, you would start to get the comments, whether by your fellow athlete or spectators, right? And coming from the reserve to those events, we both hated those events, hated that experience, but we also loved it. And I'm saying when we loved it is when we were victorious. It's like, you know, we beat you guys, and it just gave us you know, an extra element of victory of feeling good about ourselves, that, yeah, you know what, it doesn't matter that we are First Nation or we're from the res. You know what, you put us on the court or you put us wherever we are with you, we're just as good as you. And that feeling and that effect rippled through to who we were as First Nation people, as part of your identity um, in many instances. And you think that as time has passed since I was in high school, that most of this was during my high school time, and now um, there's some significant time has passed. As Ruben again mentioned my bio, I've been a lawyer for 20 plus years, almost at that 30-year mark this year. So that's almost a generation, right? Or that is a generation. So you would think as that time passes, that those types of sneers or commentary would have subsided or would not even exist at all, because, after all, we've seen our province, and we've certainly seen our country become very diverse and include and have people of diverse backgrounds. But as a parent today, I'm the mother of 4. All of my kids have played sports. I have a golfer, a basketball player, volleyball, baseball, all of every different sport. And I soon realized that the racism didn't stop, right? It didn't stop. In most instances, it was okay if the kids were hanging out at the ODR or just shooting some hoops right in the neighborhood, but add a little competition to the mix and things quickly changed. So racism in sport exists, and it exists at every level. It exists in every sport, and it exists at every competition. And we've heard from athletes that play at the professional level, that racism exists there. And I know that, for speaking for First Nation youth, and I think that this is probably could be true for many other youth as well, that you think, you put up with this as you work to get towards an elite level of competition, you get to that professional level, that things are going to get better there because it is professional, right? It's at a place that is supposed to be better, that you will no longer have to put up with those racist remarks. But clearly we've seen at that national level, at that elite level, that that's not true. For myself, I look at my boys played hockey, and I look at the different First Nation hockey players that are there and what they have to endure. Ethan Bear is the one that comes to mind, who, people blamed him for Edmonton losing the game, and it wasn't the fact that they just blamed him, but they brought out all of these negative and hateful comments. And as I felt for him, I could definitely feel what he was going through, but at the same time, he made me proud because of how he handled it, how he took the high road, and how he held his head high, and he kept going, and in fact spoke out, and is part of that great video that is out there as well. And so we need to help each other, but just as important, we need to speak out against racism in sport. We know elite athletes are not immune to experiencing racism. We start to hear that more and more. Or maybe it's not just that it's happening, we're hearing about it more and more recently, but maybe we're starting to listen, right? Maybe people are starting to listen about what people have experienced over the years, and we're trying to tell us. We love our country, Canada, right? It's viewed internationally as this wonderful place, this tolerant society. But sometimes that tolerance, right, includes allowing racism to continue. Sometimes we turn the other cheek, or we look the other way, and we ignore what and push down what we experience or what we witness. And none of that helps, right? It doesn't help to make the racism go away. So we have to make some changes. And often what I do, I kind of have 4 markers that I look to when trying to address issues. And I mean, I've been a lawyer, as for over 20 years and dealing with a lot of issues related to First Nations people. And part of my strategy is this four kind of items that I like to address. And the first is awareness. If we don't know that there is an issue, how can we begin to address it, right? And the work of the Anti-Racism in Sport campaign has definitely done great things to raise awareness about racism in sport and racism in sport for everybody. I love, I was in the walk in summer, it seems so long ago, for Indigenous women and girls in sport. And it's important to raise the different people that it affects in sport and to highlight that it affects everybody, right? And that was a great way, I think, to raise awareness. For too long, we've allowed people to deal with discrimination in sport on their own as an individual athlete. And in so doing, we no doubt have lost athletes to racism when they could have excelled at elite levels or just simply continued to play sports at any level. So we need to ensure everyone knows that it exists and that it is unacceptable. So awareness is huge. Secondly, we need to have understanding. Part of this, I believe, is to gain an understanding of, first off, that it's there, but why is it there? Why do people feel the need to resort to statements like to go back to where you came from? In my instance, go back to the reservation. And, so that becomes understanding becomes a little bit more of a difficult task. And it requires events like this conference, to allow us to talk, to share our experiences as well, and to begin to develop strategies and action plans to start to address this in a real way and in a unified way. Thirdly, comes the action, right? Action can be simply speaking up, speaking up for ourselves to say, and doing it in a good way. As I mentioned, often I get many arguments, and when we were in high school and stuff, get into physical altercations because I didn't like it. It was hurtful to hear some of the things that were being said. So speaking up for yourself, and perhaps doing it in a way that maybe help people to listen. Again, education awareness, working towards developing policies in sport, discipline in sports, right? Being able to make people feel like this is real and you cannot be doing that. Me telling you don't do that is not enough. There has to be sometimes, right, repercussions, real repercussions that affect people to do that. So that the action, right? The point is to do something and to begin to create the change that is so needed in sport. Lastly, we need the commitment, right? Commitment to keep this issue alive, to keep advocating, and to also celebrate athletes of different backgrounds, to show that sport is for everyone. Once this conference is over, and once the campaign is perhaps ended, that's where the challenge comes in to maintain our commitment to addressing this issue of racism in sport, and to make sure that it continues. As mentioned, as a First Nation person, I personally have experienced racism. And, what I think crushes me even more is to witness to have witnessed my children experience racism, and other children. Oftentimes you think you can put up with a lot, but to see it happen to other people is crushing. And it's you would think that we are beyond that, and so there's a lot of work to work to do. But I don't want to leave you like on such a negative. I do want to offer some hope. I'm the mother of 4, but I'm also the grandmother. I'm grandmother of 2, and my grandson is now 6. And he's into sports. He plays lacrosse and he plays hockey. He wants to play baseball, and he wears his hair long. And for First Nation people, the hair is very sacred. And for him, his parents are traditional. They practice the traditional ways, and it's important that he wear his hair long. And everybody can see that. And he goes through experiencing that, you know, are you a girl? Like so much. And it's, you know, and that in itself, just being questioned about his gender is difficult. And I know it's difficult for him. And I know there's many times where he wants his hair cut. But pre-COVID, as I mentioned, he's a hockey player. And pre-COVID, there was an event at the Jets game. And as a Timbit, he was a Timbit player. As a Timbit player, you get to play, if you're lucky, I guess, a game prior to the Jets. And he was his team was selected to play at a Jets game. And so he and his teammates, you know, came and they got to play. And during that same time, it just so happened that they had a drum group and they had, I think it was a couple of powwow dancers, a jingle just dancer, and fancy dance dancer as well as, and that was part of the event that happened. And so once they were finished skating, they went back to their group in their area where they were sitting, and you know, we witnessed this. We started to see the singing and the dancing. And his little buddy, who's non-Indigenous, you know, was so excited when he heard the drum and he saw the dancers and, you know, things like that. And he turned to his dad and he said, "Dad, you know what? That's Rise's culture. That's Rise's culture. Rise is my grandson, right? That's Rise's culture." And he was so proud to witness that. And he, you know, and to tell his dad. And it was in the eyes of his father that was like, his dad's eyes kind of went big and thought, is that appropriate? Right? But these little guys at that time, they were like 4 and 5. But they were so excited to share that and to be happy and to be proud of each other. And so that gives me hope, right? That in my grandson's generation and the little ones, they're more accepting. And they don't have that negativity that many of us have experienced and continue to experience. And I think that's the work that we need to do, right? Is to ensure that those innocents, that those young people continue to maintain that acceptance and move forward. And so, to borrow the words of PK Subban, right? Go back to where we belong. This is where we belong. I absolutely love that. And I think that's what we have to instill in everybody. This is where we belong. And everybody belongs. So Miigwech, I wish you well during the day. And again, I thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share a few words with you. Thanks, Ruben.
Thank you, Loretta. You've been instrumental in the success of this campaign as part of the advisory committee, and it means so much to us that you're here today. My name is Daria Herkera-Palmer, and I'm a project consultant for the Anti-Racism Sport Campaign. Winnipeg's Anti-Racism Sport Campaign is a citywide anti-racism campaign that is running from April 2021 to March 2022. Funded by Canadian Heritage, the Anti-Racism Sport Campaign seeks to address, disrupt, and eliminate discrimination and racism in sport experienced by First Nations, Métis Nation, Inuit, Black, racialized, and religious minority communities in Winnipeg. We're taking a multifaceted approach that includes a research project, school presentations, training for sports stakeholders, a public awareness campaign, and an anti-racism sport accord. The campaign partners with over 50 diverse Winnipeg-based partners and stakeholders to address racism and discrimination in sport in our city. What's been great about having such an engaged group of stakeholders is that other important initiatives have stemmed out of this group that weren't originally planned, one being this conference. And many of our stakeholders recognize that the terms inclusion and access sometimes didn't actually address the real issues that it encompassed. And so this conference intends to specifically name and address the issues relating to inclusion and access to sport, because if we don't speak about the issues head on, we can't work together to create an inclusive sport community. I'd like to acknowledge that the funding for this conference is provided by the Canadian Heritage through the Anti-Racism Sport Campaign and a generous donation from Food and Beverage Manitoba. Which brings me to our door prize announcement, also sponsored by Food and Beverage Manitoba. A basket with all Manitoba-made products, including Smack Dap mustards, Nagesh coffee, artisan, pistachio ready, essential drink mixes, farmers organic fig spreads, pens, wooden spoons, and then also anti-racism sport campaign swag. And we've put a link in the chat box to a form for all participants to fill out with your name and email if you'd like to be entered into the draw that will take place at the end of the conference today. We'll also be drawing a second door prize, the grand prize, at part 2 of this conference on February 5th. And before I introduce our sponsor and moderator for this first session, if you're attending the conference today and want to post about it on social media, please tag us on our accounts at Facebook at Eris Winnipeg, or Twitter at Anti-Racism in Sport, Instagram at Anti-Racism in Sport, and use the hashtag Anti-Racism in Sport Winnipeg. I will note that if you have any questions throughout the session, please write them in the Q&A chat box, and we'll try to answer them during our Q&A portions of each session. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Daria. We're very excited to bring some of the products here. You know, Manitoba-made products are often higher in nutrition, they're locally sourced, locally produced. So we're really excited to bring some of those here for you guys. But we also bring another view that these young athletes are also our future workforce. So we're provincially funded, mostly around workforce development. And, you know, there's such a strong connection between the skills that you learn on the field as an athlete or pitch, whatever you're playing, and what you bring into your life, some of those connections that you make. So really important to be here today. And we were very honored to sponsor the conference. So my name is Sarah Schwendeman. I've been coaching in the newcomer sector for over 10 years and also a director at Food and Beverage Manitoba. So this session is very, very linked for me. I'm very honored to introduce the Winnipeg Newcomer Sport Academy to present creating welcoming and culturally safe places for sport, recreation, and physical activity for newcomers. Is your organization looking to expand and welcome participation among newcomer populations, which is a very fast-growing demographic? Newcomers to Winnipeg certainly have keen interest in participating in sport and physical activity and absolutely deserve the benefits of participation. We speak of the importance of diverse and inclusive places, yet the actions to create welcoming and culturally safe places are often missing and can perhaps be attributed to the lack of opportunities to directly hear from those with lived experiences as newcomers to Canada. During this session, you will hear about the newcomer experiences in sport and recreation and what can be done to remove barriers to be more welcoming, developmentally appropriate, and culturally safe. This brief session is the beginning of an opportunity to expand our worldview and take action towards a more welcoming, safe, and inclusive place for newcomers in Canada. So today we have Samir Jamoun. She arrived to Winnipeg in 2016 from Syria and has been in Canada for almost 5 years. In this short time, she has learned to speak English and adapt to her new country. Her family is part of the Winnipeg Newcomer Sport Academy. She has 2 brothers and 1 sister, and she is the second oldest. Samira enjoys playing sports, especially soccer, badminton, and basketball. She completed the Winnipeg Newcomer Sport Academy Youth in Sport Leadership Initiative, and Samira is in grade 9 and has recently been accepted to the University of Winnipeg Collegiate in the Model School program. We also have Girmay Tekle Wilde Gabriel Kefla. Girmay came with his family from Eritrea to Winnipeg in 2019. In Eritrea, Girmay was a school teacher as well as an athlete and coach in track and field. His 2 sons are part of the Winnipeg Newcomer Sport Academy and know the barriers that newcomers face while trying to participate in sport. He has much to share about sport and inclusion as it pertains to newcomer youth and their families. We also have Richard Sylvester. He's a strength and conditioning coach from Winnipeg, Manitoba, specializing in young athletes. Richard has spent his entire 14-year career working with young athletes age 5 to 18. Additionally, Richard is currently pursuing his PhD at the Auckland University of Technology with a thesis titled Sprint Characteristics in Youth Female Athletes Across Maturation. His mission is to take his life experience as an athlete and his career experience in strength and conditioning in order to teach young athletes how to move and be prepared for long-term sport and physical activity. Richard is the Winnipeg Newcomer Sport Academy Director of Field and Play and ensures quality experiences for all participants. You know, in coaching the IRCOM girls team for 10 years now, you'd be very surprised, as Loretta very elegantly spoke to, at what still goes on. So this is just such an important session, and we're really glad you guys are here today. So over to you, Samira, Girmay, and Richard.
Morning, everyone. I'll just go ahead and share my screen. Can one of the panelists let me know if we can see that?
Yep, we can see it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for having us here today. We're going to speak a little bit about our experiences working with our newcomers in the program. So we have a parent perspective from Girmay. We have a participant perspective with Samira, and then a leader perspective from myself. And I'll go last, and we're going to start off with Girmay.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity. Do you hear my voice?
Yep, we do.
Richard?
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so as a parent, I'm so proud to represent all the families for their children. So on this opportunity, thanks so much. So I will start for the first slide, parent view, importance of sport. Okay, what is the importance of sport? Of course, everybody knows what is the importance of sport, but I will mention some of the meaning of that. Some of them is expanding one's social network and improving health and wellness of the children as well as the family, and integrating into Canadian society. For the newcomers, of course, sport is a good opportunity to integrate it into different cultures of different society of Canada. Next slide, please. Yeah, so as I said, there is a lot of advantages for the sport, but there is also challenges. Some of the challenges are cost and safety of transportation. When you are a newcomer, of course, there is a transportation problem, and also still you didn't work, you didn't have enough money, so you have also a lot of costs. The other is knowing the system, filling out too many forms, lack of information. Of course, one of the big challenges is knowing the system, because you come from the very conservative countries, from the limited system, but here is very different system. So we have a lack of knowledge about the system when you are coming at first. Other priorities, let's say learning English, to go school, work. These are our priority when we come first. Children do not get the proper support or attention from parents because the family has priority of the family is to work, priority of the family is to improve their English, priority of the families to go with the system, with the culture, all those things. So you don't have time to support for the child. That's one of the challenges. Next slide, please. Yeah, language and communication. Children and the coach do not understand each other. Confidence in themselves and confidence in their skills decrease, feel shy. Yeah. So basically, communication is, if you don't communicate properly between the coach and the child, there is gap. So that's one of the challenges also. Of course, the coaches most of the time very smart. They try to use the non-verbal communication, but it's a challenge for the children. Unfamiliarity, perception with the Canadian sport experience is also different back home. The sport experience here in Canada in back home is too different. For example, back home, we call soccer football. But when you come here, football is different, not soccer. There is other many different experiences also. And the experience of sport in back home is very limited. But here, different kinds of sports, the winter sport, the summer sport, different international sports. So this is different experience. So for the child is very new. And specifically, when I go to Eritrean perspective, we have culture of constraints in saying or expressing what we want. So this really affects the communication of the child. In back home in Eritrea, most of the time the children, they doesn't speak confidently in front of their family, in front of the leaders. It's not good to talk in front of the leaders, in front of let's say the family. But here you have to have confidence. You have to speak. If you need some help, you have to speak. So this perspective also have a problem. Next slide, please. Okay, the other thing is knowing children are safe and feel welcome. Political war. Newcomers often come from war-torn countries. They need help, feel safe, mentally and physically. Yeah, so still when they come to Canada, still they have some mentally and physically flashback of the back home, because they come from the war zone. So when they come, they need psychology, they need help for their to take out all this bad ideas in the memories or remembrance from their mind. So that's one of the problems. Conflict is from home. There is always conflicts from home. They can listen from social media still, and they can listen from their family also. They remember those times. So newcomers are typically resilient and possess many strengths that they can draw upon as they transition to their new life in Canada. So when they come to Canada, they should be welcome. They should feel safe, really. If you see this flag, look, the children, these are my children. So they are happy that they feel that they belong in this Canada. Canada give them safe and security. So hopefully one day they will represent this flag in the international sports. This is it's not simple thing for us, for the newcomers. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is the first day when they come to Winnipeg airport. Look, the happiness on their faces. After 9 years, after 10 years, we meet together. So these are in our minds. This is happy, but when they are starting to life with the Canada, so these things are affects them. So anyway, they are very happy. All the family from the community, from the family all together with the flowers after 9 years. Oh, really very nice day. I remember always for this day. Next slide, please. So as I said, there is what I explained what sport is, and I explained what the challenges, whatever the challenges, but we have dream. The dream is to represent Canada, to represent our clubs in sports, in different sports internationally. So of course, as a recommendation for the newcomers, it's better if the sport is centered on the newcomers' perspective and the experience. This is one recommendation. So I'm so proud of the newcomers always overcoming the challenges and they becoming winners and winners. And at the end also, they remember what the challenges passed and always they serve for Canada by sport and represent the Canada. Thanks so much for all of you. I'm welcome if you have any questions. Thank you so much.
Okay, Samira. And thank you, Gurmai, for your presentation. And so that was part one, and part two is Samira.
Hello, everyone. My name is Samira, and today I'm going to be presenting. Next slide, please. So I'm going to be talking about equity and equality in sports and the differences. So I'm going to be explaining equity and equality based on the two pictures that you guys can see on your screens. So you can see equity is that each person has one box. Let's use an example, the newcomers and like the other Canadian kids, they all have the same opportunities. But you can see the last person on the right can't see anything. He's too short. And then you can see the first person on the left is too tall. He doesn't need the opportunity. He can give it to someone else that could get the same opportunity as he gets. That's equality. Equality is everybody getting the same thing. But if you guys look at the other side, which is equity, you can see the last person on the right has two boxes. And I think that's what we need. Some people doesn't have the same opportunities as other people have. Like, let's say for transportation, I think transportation is one of the biggest thing that maybe programs could be struggling with now. So let's say if somebody's parents has a car that could drive them to the soccer field or to the basketball court or to the hockey rink or whatever they're playing, but the other person doesn't have that opportunity, so he can't go. If we provide them with transportation, they all could get the same opportunities. Next slide, please. Okay, and that's diversity and inclusion. So you guys can see in diversity is that the orange balls are all together in a big circle, and the purple balls are around. So you can see they're not together. And then let's use that as sports. Let's say if the coach said, okay, pick your partners and start doing workouts. How are these kids gonna be communicating with others, knowing what's happening? Let's use as newcomers are the orange. Like, as an example of mine, when I first came here, like I didn't have that confidence and courage to go and play with others. And if the coach didn't make that first step of making partners for the games, you will never get to know someone else in your class. So I think one game that could really be well with that is ice breaking games. Like this year when I went to my school, was a whole new school for me. I didn't know anybody there, and I didn't have that confidence to go with another like guy and tell him, can you be my partner? I don't have that confidence, and I don't think that other people will have that confidence too. So what our teacher did is that she made an ice breaking games. You have like 1 minute, go tell everybody one thing you like and your name. And then everybody was really happy and then talking with each other. And then that's the first step of communication and feeling welcome to the society that you're in. Because I think if you don't feel welcome to the society you're in, you're not gonna have confidence, you're not gonna have that courage to go out and try for sports tryouts. And then you can see the other game, you can see the other picture is inclusion. Everybody's playing together, and that's what we need. We need everybody playing together. We need communication. Without communication, like I think newcomers couldn't really feel welcome. Like, for example, when I came here to Canada, I remember so in recess, like I was in grade 6. So in recess, like the boys would go play soccer and the girls with them, and then I would just be like standing around. I didn't feel like I was that welcome to the society, and then I have a bit of mental health problems because of that, and even because of the society that I came with. Like, I didn't know anybody here. How am I gonna get used to everything if I can't communicate with the others? And then I think one thing that could make you not feel welcome to the society is language. It's a big thing. You have to learn English to be able to communicate with others. And then that's the problem I faced when I came here. I thought I was gonna never learn English. How am I gonna learn it? Like, when I was back, I didn't like English. It was too hard for me to learn. But when I came here, and then I learned English through sports, communicating with others, playing games. And then when I also went to the Newcomer Sport Academy, it was a big help for me. There were kids there that already speak English, so I learned from them. They learned from me. And then even when I went to the school, when they saw like I'm a newcomer, I don't know anything in here, they also felt me like, I feel like I was welcome to my class, that everybody was helping me learning new English and communicating with them. So my confidence got better, and then I went for tryouts for sport, and that what makes you feel welcome and to the society. That was all. Thank you.
Thank you, Samira. Thank you very much. Okay. So as you've seen, newcomers typically have less access to sports compared to the people that live here, Canadian citizens or permanent residents. However, the newcomer population is growing, and we do have a couple estimates here. So in the next 15 or so years, a conservative estimate is 30% of the population will be made up of newcomers. On the high side of the estimate, 40% of the population will be comprised of newcomers. So it's the time that we start preparing and learning how to accommodate newcomers within our programs. When we're thinking about ways to accommodate newcomers, it's important to understand the barriers. So we have to get to know the population. We have to ask a lot of questions. And in searching for those questions or answers to those questions, we're looking for those solutions. But we also have to consider other opportunities. So in our journey here with Winnipeg Newcomer Sport, oftentimes there's ideas out there that organizations could consider that are kind of outside of their normal plan. I think that's important. So other than just the plan that you come in with an organization, consider all other possibilities, ideas from parents, ideas from other organizations, ideas from the participants themselves. And then once we have all those ideas, we create an action plan and we deliver on those action plans. So as I mentioned previously, asking good questions, asking a lot of questions. It really helps to be curious. Girmay mentioned in terms of forums and registration, asking, hey, what's the best way to get a hold of you? What's the best way for you to fill out this registration form? All those questions will go a long way. In terms of participants, asking participants why they show up. This is important in terms of the coaching delivery. So if a participant shows up because they like being with their friends, that's going to be kind of a different delivery in terms of, or compared to someone who likes to learn about a specific sport. So it's important to understand why they show up so we can deliver the appropriate coaching. It also helps us connect when we ask good questions. when we're curious about someone and their lives, what's going on in their lives, it really helps with that connection between leader and participant, between participant and participant as well. Essentially, we want to create the best possible experience for the athlete. And this is the first and foremost kind of goal. So with Winnipeg Newcomer Sport, we teach our kids a variety of sports, 20 plus sports, but the number one goal is to make sure they have a quality, positive experience. So, and secondary to that is to teach them the actual, ins and outs of the sport. We want to make sure they love the sport, have a positive experience, and from there they can grow. That positive experience serves as the foundation of their whole time, their whole experience involved in a program. So being welcoming, being inclusive, safe, trustworthy, integrity, reliability. So all these factors are the foundation of their whole experience. And it's going to be really hard for athletes or participants to grow and get better and continue to strive if they don't, at the very base level, feel safe and trust the experience and feel that leaders or people in the organization aren't going to do what they said they were going to do. And they're not going to show up when they said they would show up. So all that's at the very base level, the most important thing. Positive experience, feeling safe. Another way we can talk about building a positive experience, we often hear the term build the environment or build the culture. Okay, so if at the bottom of this experience, of this environment, is the safety, then the supporting structures, maybe the walls of the environment, okay, we have some other factors, okay, kind of like a holistic approach to that environment. The way I like to think about that holistic approach or creating that environment is what we call address the mess. So mental and the emotional factors, the social factors, and also the strategy of coaching. So I like to think about all of these factors before I think about the physical content. So the physical content is what sits in the environment, okay? But we consider all those safety factors, the welcomeness, the inclusiveness, safety, and all the mental, emotional, social, and strategy of coaching before we decide, oh, we're gonna do this game, before we decide, oh, we're gonna do this sport. So the mental, this is a collaborative framework of values or life skills that we can also call it. The reason why it's collaborative, it's a little bit more sticky. If we ask the participants' opinion on how we should proceed or what they feel is important, and at the very least, we want them to verbalize what they believe in, what they feel is important, what they feel is going to keep them safe, what kind of life skills they want to learn, not to say that we just kind of let them fly with it, but we have an idea of some important values and life skills, and we kind of navigate them down that path, but we do want them to verbalize, all those things that they feel are important. When we're thinking about mental, we're also talking about talking and thinking. So what do the athletes tell themselves, and what do they think about, and what do they tell the world? So if an athlete is going to constantly be telling themselves negative things, an athlete or participant, then we want to address that, especially if they're putting that negativity out into the world. Okay, we want to snatch it and then address that right away. We want to say, oh, what do you mean by that? Oh, you said you suck at this. Like, what exactly do you suck at? Like, why do you think you're bad at this? What is it do you think you're bad at? Okay, we don't want that negativity to spread. If it's something positive, okay, if they're putting positivity in the air, we want to recognize that, okay? We want the positivity to spread, but not the negativity. Emotional. So we want to ground a participant's experience in something important or interesting to them. So these are kind of the building blocks, or some of the building blocks to our motivational and confidence frameworks. So we won't go through those today, but motivation essentially is about serving the participant, is fulfilling some type of need so they can be self-determined in their pursuit of that activity or sport or whatever it is you're there to do. Okay, and confidence, we're talking about confidence in the participant themselves, so how they feel about themselves, but also how they feel about their skills. And those are two different things. So how they feel about themselves, how they feel about their skills, there'd be two different approaches if you're looking to progress that in an athlete. Okay, in terms of grounding their whole experience, we want to find out why they actually come. So I mentioned this before, you know, if they show up because they want to be with their friends, or they show up because, you know, they want to compete, two different approaches. Connection, this is probably my favorite part of coaching. Building that connection between the coach and the participant, but especially between the participants. So when you see participants connect, then it really puts a smile on their face. You know, they really start having fun. There's many different activities that you can do in terms of building that connection. A popular one I have is the circle of trust. So we literally sit in a circle, okay, and we say, this is the circle of trust. And we just talk. We say, hey, what's on your mind? You know, it could be simple as, what did you do at school today? Could be simple as anything they want to share, a song, a dance move, whatever. Okay, anything where we're just talking, connecting. Another method I like to use to connect with participants is music. So with this group that I have, or the group that I normally coach within our Winnipeg Newcomer Sport Academy group, I usually have the boys group, and it just so happens that we have the same music taste. So we happen to connect through our love of music. That was a good day, good walk in the park, Assiniboine Park. Yeah, listening to music, had a good time. Athletes to athletes, or participants to participants, we want to give them a time to socialize. So with our group, we tend to split into 3 different groups. So basically, based on their developmental kind of stage or developmental age. But in the beginning, we keep them all together. You know, we do something energetic and fun. So this example here is what we call the Mad Dash. So it's a chance to run, because that's usually one of the first things that kids do. They get to the field and they just run. So we wanted to kind of channel that and bottle that into our Mad Dash, which kind of jumps right into a big game of dodgeball. So usually we'll kind of block that up. So we'll do, you know, dodgeball for a couple months. Right now we're on British Bulldog, and at this point we're on soccer. Strategy of coaching. So we want to be intentional with how we structure things. Oftentimes we make the mistake of jumping right to instruction with kids. And you know, anyone that you coach would appreciate a bit of, you know, exploration, kind of fun time, but especially with kids, it's really hard to get away with having a good session if we don't do some type of exploration or kind of just letting the kids kind of, run with it. So on this particular day, we did basketball. So before the coach got into actual basketball instruction, we just played basically a dribbling basketball game. So it's just a chance to have fun, very little talking, very little instruction, just, okay, let's just do it. Let's have fun. And then the kids are kind of ready for action. We also want to be intentional with our language. So not talking for a long time, making sure we're using positive words, making sure that we're using some type of language where we're putting a picture in their mind. So it's not just talking about body weight or body parts, put your arm like this, put your body like this. It's putting a picture in their mind, using, some type of analogy or metaphor, or referencing something in the environment that puts a picture in their mind. So an example, like dribble through the floor, or, if they're sprinting, hammer your legs down, like a hammer, anything that puts a picture in their mind. If I could leave you with one last little example here, just thinking about coaching, a new participant shows up and oftentimes they're kind of on an island. They may not be familiar with language, maybe they've never met anyone in the group, maybe they've never done any of the activities before, but they have their own set of skills, thoughts, emotions. Okay, and then here's everyone else on the other side of the body of water, that's been kind of just trucking along, doing their thing. And oftentimes we make the mistake of just saying, hey, just do what we do, kind of just, do what we do, follow along, but we don't make any accommodations. We don't do what we can to help. We don't meet the athlete or meet the participant where they're at. So we've heard that term before, meet the participant where they're at. That means accepting, where they're at in terms of their thoughts, skills, emotions, and then finding out, how they'd like to proceed on their journey. So however, or why ever they're here, why ever they show up, we want to walk that journey with them. We want to provide the navigation with those participants, okay, instead of just the fall in line kind of mentality. Okay, meet them where they're at, take the journey with them. And that is all for me, except for a couple of resources. If you'd like to know more, we do have one ourselves, okay, the sport and physical activity for newcomers toward an inclusive sports system. Sport for Life also has a resource, cultural awareness and youth sport. Here's a Canadian one as well, Project SCORE here at the bottom. It talks, when I talked about that, address the mess, the mental, emotional, social, and strategy of coaching. That was basically inspired by this Project SCORE resource here. And also True Sport, which talks about ethics and kind of values in sport. So there's plenty of resources. Thank you for having us today. We appreciate your time and your energy. So till the next time.
Thank you so much to Richard for finishing off the presentation. I think we still have a few minutes, if I'm not wrong, for any questions. If anybody would like to put it in the Q&A, we can try to answer it here with the group live. I know a question that we get at IRCOM a lot is, what are the biggest barriers that some of the newcomer communities face to sports or getting their kids in sports?
I think transportation is, like, there's many, but transportation is often the kind of like, hey, we can do this if we can get there, you know. So an example, I also work with a track club in the city. There's an inner city track club that started, and the registration rate between the club not providing transportation and providing transportation was basically like 300%. Okay, it just jumped way up. You know, just some of the areas that some of our participants live in can be a little bit dangerous, and I wouldn't, you know, I don't blame parents for not wanting to send their kids on a bus or having to walk, you know, through some, you know, some parts of downtown. You know, imagine, you know, sending your 12-year-old kid on a bus, you know, walking through downtown to catch the bus to wherever, you know, the program happens to be. So yeah, transportation, I think, would be number one. You know, when you first move to a new country, you often don't have a car or a reliable mode of transportation, and if you do, it might be only one car, and that one car might be used by other members of the family to go work. And so yeah, I would say transportation would be right up there.
Thank you. We had a question in the chat specifically for Samira. Samira, could you speak a little bit about your experience as a religious minority in sport in Winnipeg?
Hello. So I think being a Muslim and participating in sports doesn't make any difference. Basically, like for in Islam religion, we have Ramadan, is where we fast from the sunset to sunrise. And we can't drink water throughout the day, and then it might be hard to play sports. Like, because you're gonna get thirsty, and you need to drink water where you can't drink water. I don't think it makes that much difference. When I was fasting, I used to play soccer, but when you love something, it doesn't matter. Whatever comes, doesn't matter to you. If you love it, you do it. And then I think one of the things that maybe could be a lack of understanding to other people is about Ramadan, about the clothing. So as a Muslim girl, and there's like girls in Muslim religion, they wear a hijab. You guys call it like a headscarf. And then some people could think like, why you're wearing it, and then it's part of our religion, and it means like modesty. And then some coaches, like one of the experience I had when I came here is that one coach was asking me to take it off, because and then you also had to wear long sleeves, long pants. Like the only thing that shows in your body is that your face, and that's all. And then your hands. And then he was telling me to take it off. I was like, no, that's part of my religion. He thought that I was wearing it because I don't want other people to see my hair, but that's not like the right thing. I just want like people in the sports to know how, like, not just Muslim, maybe other religions have like a typical type of clothing that they wear that represents the religion. And then they could respect that too. And I hope that answers the question.
It answers it very well. Thank you, Samira. Any officials in the crowd, it is very helpful to know when Ramadan is and maybe provide some extra breaks during any activities and games and matches. So we have one last question from the chat. How does one get involved with the Winnipeg Newcomer Sport Academy?
So I can put that in the chat. So we have our founder, our head person, Carolyn Trono, who I believe is on the call. And then we also have our admin person, Morgan Reitberger. And then myself, who handles more of the field kind of stuff. So yeah, contact any of the three of us. I'll put our contact information in the chat, and yeah, give us a call, send us an email, and yeah, we can chat.
Great. Thank you so much to Samira, Gurmai, and Richard for the great presentation. We're going to take a 5-minute break, a little bio break, before our next presentation from the Rainbow Resource Center and Out There Winnipeg. So we'll see you all back in 5 minutes.